Welcome today to the 12th day of prayer. Today we're talking about loaves and fish. And today's scripture is in Matthew 14:13 through 21. And I will read the very first paragraph. It goes like this. As soon as Jesus heard the news, he left in a boat to a remote area to be alone. But the crowds heard where he was headed and followed on foot from many towns. Jesus saw the huge crowd as he stepped from the boat, and he had compassion on them and healed their sick. It goes on to say how Jesus had compassion and healed them, and then he did one of the biggest miracles of his ministry, which was the feeding of the over 5,000 people that he fed that day, and it was an incredible miracle. But if we go to the top of the passage, the very first sentence says, as soon as Jesus heard the news. So what news is it talking about? And if we go further back, we would be able to tell that these news were referring to his cousin who had been killed. So he was John, who was his fellow kingdom worker, and he had just been killed. And it was tragic news for all the followers of John and the followers of Jesus. And so we can imagine maybe why he left at that moment. He heard the news. Jesus heard the news and he left. And he wanted to be alone. We imagine he wanted to pray because he typically was left the group and went alone to pray. So he probably wanted to pray. But we can imagine he felt the pain as well, the pain of the people, the pain that John must have felt before he was killed. And yet we go on to say that when Jesus saw the people, even though he wanted to be alone, he saw them and he felt compassion. And this compassion was the driving force behind this incredible miracle. So this got me thinking about how we have spiritual needs. Like Jesus, he needed to be alone at that moment. And he needed to pray. And we have those needs as well. We have the need to be with God in his word, and the need to pray for ourselves and to pray for others, and to seek solitude, time alone. But I think we need to be careful that when we're seeking those spiritual needs, we don't forget the physical needs that we have and others have. And that when we're seeking that solitude, we don't forget compassion, and when we're seeking our needs, we don't forget the needs of others. Because that's the example that Jesus gives in this picture. He is seeking both, and he's aware of both. And so my challenge for you today would be that every time that you meet a need of yours today, whether it's that you need to eat, or you're going to the store to buy your food today, whatever need it is, that wherever you're meeting that need of yours today, that you pause for a second and you look around you and you see if there's anyone else that has a need that you can meet at that moment. That you let what Jesus' example was, that eye of compassion, that you borrow that eye for compassion, and that you look around with that eye and see if there's any need that you can meet at that moment.